In our previous lesson, I turned you on to the dark and serious sounding E minor hexatonic scale, which is a 6-note scale, and it's kind of a cross between E minor pentatonic and, say, E Dorian or E Aeolian. And now I'd like to show you the other flip side to that musical coin, as it were, what's called the D major hexatonic scale. Now, this scale has a bright and joyous sound, but interestingly, it's comprised of the very same 6 notes as E minor hexatonic. The only difference now is that we're orienting the notes around a different root note. So you could say it's a mode. Let me show you how it works. So there are a couple of very useful ways of looking at D major hexatonic. Just like we did with E minor hexatonic in the previous lesson, you could take 2 triads and invert them up the neck. As you recall, E minor hexatonic was taking this E minor triad and this D major triad, adding them together. So say if you took it here, E minor and D, put them together, you get E minor hexatonic. Now, if you take the same 2 triads, E minor and D major, but you start on D, and we're going to do what we did last time. We walk up the neck through inversions that leapfrog. So we have D, E minor, D, E minor, D, E minor, D. You can keep going a couple inversions. E minor, D. And you walk back down, D, E minor, 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 D. And that is a scale harmonized in 3 parts. So here you have a useful template, a resource for creating 3-part harmonies. Now, if you were to just play the note on the B string, that would give you the scale. There's the root note D. You can do some pretty stuff like that. And if you just play it on the top 2 strings, you get thirds. You and if you just play it on the G and B strings, with the root here, D on the top, and you go like this. Sweet sound, right? You hear that a lot in gospel music, on the piano and in gospel harmonies. Now, if you take the outer 2 strings, the G and the high E, you get this nice open sound of 5ths and 6ths. You can really appreciate the sound of each note when you play them in 5ths and 6ths like that, right? So that's a very useful template. Now, you could do the same thing on the D, G, and B strings. Start with this D triad inversion. Remember, it's the same thing we did last time. We took E minor, D, E minor, D, E minor, D, E minor. But now we're starting on D. So we have this D major triad, and then we're going to walk up E minor, D, E minor, D, E minor, D. Keep going. E minor, D. Then come back down. E minor, D. E minor, D, E minor, D, E minor, D, E minor, D. Here you have the melody on top. Now you could take, I already showed you the G and B strings, but if you take the D and B strings, those notes, we walk up together. Again, we have 6ths and 5ths. So if you want to get that sound, you can always come back to this little resource here and then move the notes anywhere you want to in the neck. But that creates a beautiful harmony there. And it's nice because it's simpler than the D major scale. Another way of thinking of D major hexatonic is take the D major scale. And we're going to omit the 7th. So we're just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it has kind of that openness of major pentatonic, and yet, it's another way to think of it is D major pentatonic, right? Very simple, a 5-note scale in 2 octaves, and you add the 4th. So you're going to go, the major pentatonic is 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1. We're going to add the 4th G. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a very sweet sound. Here are some useful fretboard positions for D major hexatonic scale. You can play it all over the neck. What you do is you take your D major pentatonic boxes, you hopefully know the 5-note scale, and what we're going to do is we're going to add the G note in every instance. So if we start down here, this will be D major pentatonic. There's your root. There's a root again. And we add a G note in each octave. So we're going to go D root, is added G note. And moving up to the next position, this one is probably more familiar because it's a fixed, fretted, movable shape. This would be D major pentatonic. There's the root. There's the root again. Right, you know, hopefully are familiar with that sound and that shape. And we're going to add a G note in each octave. So we're going to go. There's the root. Okay, and then we have this shape, D major pentatonic. Which you probably also know is B minor pentatonic, right? The relative major minor pentatonic thing. And again, we're going to add a G note in each octave. So here we're going to reach down to G. We're going to start on G. Add that G. Moving along, if you take this position, this would be D major pentatonic. We're going to add a G note in each octave. I'm emphasizing the G by picking it a little harder there. Moving right along, this is one of the most common pentatonic shapes. I mean, you probably recognize this as B minor pentatonic, right? It's also D major pentatonic. Okay, we're gonna, there's the 4th G. Moving right along, here's the next position for D major pentatonic. Now D major hexatonic with the 4th added. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. Almost done. We have one more, I believe, here. D major pentatonic up here in 10th position. Adding the 4th G. That kind of looks like the full D major scale, right? But we're omitting that note. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. And then finally we have this first position that we started out with 1 octave higher. So now where the open notes are now all fretted. D major pentatonic. D major hexatonic. Okay, so there is your positions for D major hexatonic. You can try sliding in and out of them and using hammer-ons and pull-offs and phrasing. You find that some of them are more useful than others. Typically the ones that are more compact, that don't require big stretches or rely too much heavily on the pinky, which is the least reliable finger from a neuromuscular standpoint. If there's one player whose name is really associated with D major hexatonic, well, maybe not, people don't realize it by that name, but when they hear the sound of D major hexatonic or any major hexatonic scale, it would be Dickie Betts, founding guitarist of the Allman Brothers Band. He pretty much owns that scale. You hear him soloing with it on Ramblin' Man, Jessica, Blue Sky, where it all begins. And yeah, Dickie is really, he loves to play with that scale. And you know, he has this signature sound where he pulls off and hammers on and plays smooth, even eighth notes and uses precision bends, almost like pedal steel kind of bends, and some sweet vibratos and finger slides. Here's a little ditty, a little country rock style lick that uses this very same D major hexatonic scale that I just showed you, some of the patterns I just showed you, and it's in the style of and inspired by the great Dickie Betts. Okay, so I used this position I showed you. I started in that position, but then I kind of did some finger slides, use them as position shifts. So I started out going. So this is straight up D major pentatonic, you know. Hammer on, bend, supporting with two fingers, bend and release, and pull off. A little sweet vibrato. That's the major hexatonic note, right? As soon as you introduce the fourth, this works great over any major chord, basically, you know, and it gives you a nice open sound, you know, like you get this. It's like, has the openness, the simplicity of pentatonic, and it doesn't sound as dense as the 7-note D major scale or D Lydian mode or D mixolydian mode, but you still have that harmonic color from the fourth. So pick up to bar 1. And then a pull off. Another pull off. So it's. There's a finger slide right there. Bar 4, I went. And now I'm up in 9th position, and then sliding up or shifting up a little more to 10th position. Another finger slide. You know, so I use the ring finger to kind of pull the hand. Vibrato, pushing this way as to not fall off the fretboard, right? You don't want to pull the string. Another finger slide. So here I'm going from the the third F sharp, the sweetest of all notes over a major chord, to the 4th. Another slide up to the 5th, A, up to the 17th fret. Getting that bend, you know, from A up to B, from the 5th up to the 6th. So slowly it's. Here's another example, this one inspired by another one of my big heroes, the legendary Steve Morse and his great band, the Dixie Dregs. They had a tune called The Bash, which was an up-tempo country barn burner, as they say, a bluegrass style thing. And this is like a twin fiddles type of riff. You know, you hear that in Western swing, Bob Wills and his Texas Playboys. And it's like two lead guitars playing up high. I'm going to be using D major hexatonic, and we're doing like an alternate picking thing across the strings. And here we go. So the guitar 1 part, we start off here. Just repeating that 1, 2, 3, that 5 note. So that's really D major pentatonic. And I'm starting on a downstroke, so when I cross over to the B string, it's on an upstroke. Gives me that outside the strings picking. I've strategically arranged my string crosses, you've heard me say this a million times, to make it life a little bit easier in a picking hand. So there's our D major hexatonic note, G, And then we have a little bit of a stretch here, but we're up in a high position, so it's not too bad. So just practice the first part by itself. And then the longer run. And then the guitar 2 part harmonizes it starting on the 5th A. And because we're walking in lockstep fashion down through the scale, every note is going to create a pleasing harmony. So we got same thing, 2 notes per string, starting in a downstroke. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up. So that creates a nice harmony with the guitar 1 part. This is the 2 parts combined. It always sounds, of course, a lot sweeter and sonically clearer to have the 2 separate guitars, because when you're playing with distortion and you play third intervals like that, it can sound muddy, unfortunately. That works great on acoustic or with a clean sound, but you wouldn't have 2 guitars doing that. Again, work on the first part by itself. And then work on the long run. And it helps to accent the first note, because by accenting, it forces you to relax on the other notes that you're not accenting, because by contrast, they're going to be easier, picked lighter than the accented notes. And it helps you group the notes more in those 8-note groups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1. And of course, palm mute the lower strings that you're not playing. Noise suppression is an ongoing thing, right? You always need to do that, because especially if you're using overdrive, distortion, it's always going to exaggerate every little sound for better or worse. So good luck, have fun with it.